What happens in a haunted house stays in a haunted house. Hi, I'm Alina. Welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm gonna read a few stories. Story number 1, Abandoned House. I was just 17 when my friends, let's call them Sarah and Alex, and I decided to explore an abandoned house on the outskirts of town during summer break. The house had a reputation for being haunted, but we were convinced it was all just a bunch of spooky stories. As soon as we stepped foot inside, we were hit by a musty smell that made our skin crawl. Ignoring the eerie atmosphere, we joked and laughed as we roamed the empty halls, searching for anything that would give us a good scare. It wasn't long before we started hearing strange noises. A creak here, a whisper there. Sarah brushed it off as the old house settled in, but Alex and I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was watching us. As we ventured deeper into the house, we stumbled upon a room filled with old dolls. Each doll had a lifeless stare that sent shivers down our spines. I joked about how they looked like they were waiting for their next victim, but deep down I couldn't wait to get out of there. Night fell and the house seemed to come alive with eerie shadows and unexplained sounds. We decided to call it a night and head back to our car. That's when things took a terrifying turn. As we reached the front door, it slammed shut with a force that made the whole house tremble. Panic set in as we realized we were locked inside with no way out. Sarah tried to remain calm, but Alex and I could feel our hearts racing with fear. That's when we heard it, a hissing sound echoing through the darkness, sending chills down our spines. We turned around to see a figure standing in a doorway cloaked in darkness. Without hesitation, we ran in different directions hoping to find an exit. But the house seemed to shift and change, trapping us in a maze of corridors and rooms. I found myself in a dusty attic surrounded by old furniture and forgotten memories. As I tried to catch my breath, I heard footsteps approaching. I held my breath, praying it was Sarah or Alex. But what I saw next froze me in terror. It was a figure dressed in all black, its eyes glowing with a malevolent light. I tried to scream, but no sound escaped my lips as it reached out towards me with clawed hands. I closed my eyes, bracing for the worst, but when I opened them again, I was alone. Shaken to the core, I stumbled out of the attic and found Sarah and Alex waiting for me by the front door. We never spoke about what happened that night, but the fear lingered long after we left the abandoned house. To this day, I can still hear the whispers in the dark, reminding me that some mysteries are better left unexplored. Old woman. I was 19, full of that invincible feeling that often accompanies youth. My friends, let's call them Jenny and Mike, were equally excited about our spring break getaway. We had booked a cabin in the woods for a few days of adventure and relaxation, or so we thought. The cabin had an eerie charm about it, nestled deep within the dense forest, far from the hustle and bustle of civilization. As we arrived and settled in, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The air seemed to carry whispers of a forgotten past, a sense of unease that clung to the very walls of our temporary retreat. One evening, as dusk painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, there was a knock at our door. I opened it to find an elderly woman standing on the front porch, her eyes filled with a mixture of confusion and desperation. She claimed to be lost and asked for our help in finding her way back home. Jenny and Mike were hesitant, but I couldn't ignore the distress in the old woman's voice. Against their protests, I agreed to accompany her, leaving my friends behind in the safety of the cabin. The woman led me through the darkening woods, her steps sure despite her age. We arrived at a small cottage hidden among the trees, its windows glowing with a warm light that beckoned us inside. She insisted on brewing a pot of tea to thank me for my kindness. As I sipped the tea, a dizziness overcame me and the world blurred into a haze. I struggled to stay conscious, but the drug had already taken hold. When I regained awareness, I found myself chained in a dimly lit basement, my head throbbing with a dull ache. The old woman stood before me, her once frail demeanor replaced by a menacing presence. She explained her twisted game. I was to build my own coffin, using the tools and boards she provided. If I refused, she promised unimaginable pain. Fear gripped my heart as I realized the gravity of the situation. With trembling hands, I started assembling the pieces, each nail driven into the wood echoing like a death knell in the suffocating silence of the basement. Hours passed, each minute stretching into an eternity of despair. Just as I finished constructing the coffin, a commotion erupted outside. Shouts and footsteps echoed through the cottage, followed by the sound of splintering wood as the door burst open. I looked outside. The old woman was gone, leaving behind only traces of her macabre game. Since that harrowing experience, I've never been able to shake off the lingering fear. Every creak in the night, every shadow in the corner serves as a grim reminder of the horrors I narrowly escaped. A cautionary tale of trust misplaced and the darkness that lurks in the most unsuspecting places. Restless spirits. I had just turned 16 when my family decided to move to a new house on the outskirts of town. At first, everything seemed normal, but it wasn't long before strange things started happening. It all began with the nightmares. Every night, without fail, I would wake up in a cold sweat, my heart racing from the vivid and terrifying dreams that plagued my sleep. But what was even more unsettling was when I discovered that my family members were experiencing the exact same nightmares. In the depth of my recurring nightmares, I find myself standing in a desolate landscape shrouded in an eerie mist that obscures everything beyond a few feet. Before me lies a murky river, its waters flowing with a sluggish, ominous current. On the opposite bank, there stands a boatman in tattered robes, his face obscured by shadows, waiting patiently beside a small boat. As I gaze upon the scene, my heart clenches with dread as I realize what lies before me. Lining the river bank are rows upon rows of ancient coffins, each one bearing the likeness of people who once dwelt within the walls of this very house. Their faces are frozen in expressions of sorrow and despair, their eyes covered by coins glinting in a dim light. I am compelled to approach the coffins, drawn by an unseen force that whispers of forgotten sins and unfulfilled destinies. With trembling hands, I lift the lids of the spectral caskets, revealing the lifeless forms within. Their bodies are preserved in an eternal slumber, yet their presence exudes a haunting aura that sends shivers down my spine. Each coffin bears a name that resonates with the sense of familiarity and dread. These are the souls of those who once walked the halls of this house, now trapped in an eternal limbo, awaiting passage across the river of the dead. But the journey is not an easy one, as the boatman beckons with a skeletal hand, urging me to send the souls on their final voyage. I am gripped by a paralyzing fear. I hear whispers on the wind, voices from beyond the veil, urging me to complete the ritual to release these restless spirits from their earthly bonds. But with each lid I close, with each coin I place upon their eyes, I feel a part of myself slipping away, consumed by the darkness that permeates this nightmarish realm. At first, we tried to brush it off as mere coincidences, attributing it to the stress of the move and adjusting to a new environment. However, as the nightmares persisted and grew increasingly detailed and horrifying, we couldn't ignore the chilling possibility that there was something more sinister at play. As the days passed, the nightmares started bleeding into our waking hours. We could catch glimpses of movement out of the corner of our eyes, hear whispers that vanished when we turned to look, and feel a chilling presence lingering just beyond our senses. One evening, while exploring the attic of our new home, I stumbled upon an old dusty box tucked away in a forgotten corner. Inside, I found a collection of strange objects. A tattered book with cryptic symbols, a worn-out doll with glassy eyes that seemed to follow me, and a rusty key with no obvious purpose. The moment I touched the doll, a wave of cold dread washed over me, and I felt as though I was being watched by unseen eyes. That night, the nightmares escalated to a whole new level of horror. I found myself trapped in a nightmarish maze, pursued relentlessly by a sinister figure that bore an uncanny resemblance to the doll I had found. Desperate for answers, I confided in my family about the discovery in the attic and the escalating nightmares. Together, we decided to investigate the history of the house and the objects we had found. What we uncovered sent shivers down our spines. The previous owners of the house had a dark history, dabbling in occult rituals and summoning entities beyond their understanding. The objects in the attic were linked to these rituals, cursed with the malevolent energies they had unleashed. As the nightmares persisted and our fears grew, we decided to seek help beyond the mundane. We reached out to a renowned medium who specialized in dealing with supernatural phenomena. The medium, a wise and weathered woman with piercing eyes that seemed to see beyond the veil of reality, agreed to visit our home and conduct a seance. The night of the seance was fraught with tension and anticipation. The medium sat at the head of our dining table, surrounded by flickering candles and a heavy atmosphere charged with energy. We clasped hands, forming a circle, as she chanted ancient incantations and called upon the spirits to reveal themselves. At first there was only silence, broken only by the soft whispers of the wind outside. Then a sudden chill filled the room, and the flames of the candles flickered. We felt a presence, a cold and palpable presence that seemed to hover just beyond our senses. The medium's voice changed, taking on an otherworldly tone as she communicated with the spirits that lingered in our house. They spoke of ancient grudges, of restless souls seeking vengeance, and of dark entities drawn to the chaos that was unwittingly unleashed. Terrified yet determined, we pressed on, seeking guidance and protection. We invited a priest to bless our home, hoping that the power of faith would ward off the malevolent forces that haunted us. The priest arrived, his demeanor grave as he performed rituals of purification. For a while, it seemed as though the rituals had worked. The nightmares subsided and the oppressive atmosphere in our home lifted. But deep down, we knew that the darkness had merely receded, biding its time in the shadows, waiting for an opportunity to strike again. To this day, we live with the knowledge that our house is not truly ours, but a vessel for something ancient and malevolent. We keep the lights on at night, not out of fear of the dark, but out of fear of what might lurk within it. And in the quiet moments before sleep claims us, we wonder if the nightmares were truly banished, or if they merely found new ways to torment us, hidden in the shadows of our haunted home.